Hello there. This is Marian Peppelmeyer, and I am with the Igniting Soul Columbus chapter in Columbus, Ohio. And our special guest for today is Cathy Studer. She is a local resident here in Central Ohio, a member of the chapter, and she has recently released an incredible book with an incredible story. And the book is called Broken to Beautifully Whole. And so I want to welcome Cathy Studer. Say hello, Cathy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me, Marianne. I really appreciate the time.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. I'm the one privileged, and everyone else listening in are the ones that are privileged. So we greatly appreciate it. So, Cathy, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you even were led to write the book, and how you met up with Author Academy Elite and Carrie. So there's quite a story. And first of all, your family, real briefly. Do you have family around with you and during this coronavirus time?
So I live in Galena, Ohio, and I live with my husband and our adorable yellow lab, Levi. Typically, we have two children, a 24-year-old daughter and 28-year-old son. They don't typically live with us, but right now my 24-year-old is living with us due to the coronavirus. She's in grad school in Chicago, and right now they're on a little bit of a hiatus. There's a delay in their program because of COVID-19, so she is living with us. So yeah, we're here in Galena.
Okay, well, welcome. And so how did you feel compelled to write your book? And how did you get linked with Author Academy Elite as a chosen method for publishing it and writing it?
So writing my book, that's a great question, because I've told several people this. If you would have came to me 5 years ago and said I would write this book and share my story of my own healing pilgrimage of how I healed after 6 years of childhood sexual abuse, I would put it into a book and share it with the world, I would have said, "You're crazy. That's not happening." However, I was called to a purpose. I'm a hairstylist by trade, and I see clients every 4, 6, and 8 weeks. And you can develop a close relationship with clients you see that often. And one of those clients had a nice smile and a sweet personality, yet I knew she struggled with some depression and PTSD. One day in my chair, she shared with me the why. She too had been sexually abused as a child. I shared with her my story, which I had never shared with another client before. That day we finished out our appointment and she left. When she came in for her next appointment, she asked me, "Cathy, did you suffer depression?" I paused. I had depressed days. I had a tremendous amount of shame, a tremendous amount of humiliation, yet I didn't. "Well, what about PTSD?" she asked. Again, I paused. I had angst. I had worry. I had complete lack of trust with humanity, but I didn't. "Were you medicated, right?" she asked. I know it's beneficial for some, yet I didn't. Don't get me wrong, I was broken and I had a journey to heal. She looked me square in the eye and she said, "You need to write a book, girlfriend." That day I laughed it off because I couldn't see the value, yet it laid on me in the days to come. And I reflected and I asked, why do some people suffer trauma and go on to live a fairly successful life? And why do others suffer more? One person is no better than another. What did I do on my journey to become whole again? And I reflected and I went into deep introspection and I went into prayer. And I wrote down attributes I applied, books I loved, quotes that empowered me, and scripture I drew strength from. And then I remembered a one-page journal I wrote when I was 13, shortly after the abuse had ended. And I went to see if I had it. And I did. This piece of paper's over 40 years old. And yes, paper does yellow after 40 years. I filled it up on one side as a child, and I filled it up on the back. And then I wrote in the corner, a part of me that I'll never forget. And that part of me that I'll never forget was that I was sexually abused by my stepfather for 6 years, from age 6 to age 12. I titled the paper, "I'll Always Hate Him." When I wrote this, I had the tiny idea of turning it into a book. However, because of my shame, humiliation, low self-worth, and low self-esteem, I folded it up and I put it away, and I didn't do anything with it. Yet, I saved it. Unbeknownst to me, I saved it for a purpose, and that purpose was now.
Mm-hmm.
So I started writing. And when I started writing, I was petrified. Less than 10 people knew my story. I put this into a book. The world will know my story. I went back into deep introspection and prayer. And I asked, why me? Why now? I'm not a saint. I'm imperfect. I'm flawed. I'm dyslexic. I don't even have a college degree. My answer back, you're enough.
Mm-hmm.
It is time. Write the book. So I kept writing. And then when I finished my book, the next gift was I had a friend who'd referred me to someone who did some editing, and she referred me to Erica Foster. So I had the extreme pleasure of meeting Erica Foster for lunch, who then introduced me to AAE. And I actually went to a fellowship. I'm only off one Wednesday a month, so I can't go to all the fellowships, but I went to a fellowship to meet Carrie and meet the other people and get introduced to AAE. And real quick story, but that day I was there at the end of the session, which was an awesome session. Carrie asked, okay, what's your biggest takeaway from this event today? And I raised my hand and I said, storytelling is marketing. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. And he had heard me mention my story to Renee, I believe it was. And he asked me, said, would you be willing to come up on stage? And I'm like, sure. And I got up there and I was like, what am I doing? I
That
have
would
not.
be quite intimidating. It was your first time, right?
Yes, I
Okay.
had not said this out loud to more than one person at a time. And here I am standing in front of a room of people that I don't even know. I've met for the very first time. I'm telling them the story. And then I knew Carrie recorded them. And worse yet, I hadn't told my father yet. My father didn't know, which I explain in my book why. And I had to tell my father before I published my book. And in that moment, I was so afraid that my father was going to find out on camera somehow before I had a chance to tell him. And I remember Carrie asking me the questions, and I'm giving these answers, and the whole time, what am I saying? Is it making sense? Because my whole mind, the whole time I had this fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when it was over, and I thank Carrie again for bringing me up on stage. And I truly was thankful, because there is so much power in saying it out loud and breaking this silence. And I was grateful for that moment.
Wow. Yeah, definitely a key crossroads for you.
It was.
A key point, major, and encouragement.
It is. And which leads me to what I want to say about breaking the silence. So in my book, and for the whole month of April, which is Sexual Abuse Awareness Month, on my social media pages, every day I'm putting a quote or a post to raise awareness because so many people don't know and understand. And one of the items that I really push for is breaking the silence. And I want to share why that's so important. Number one,
Yeah, breaking the silence for the persons who have been abused,
yes,
the survivors.
yes, exactly. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For every survivor, whether it's domestic, physical, or verbal, to be honest, mine was sexual abuse. However, breaking the silence actually creates a resolution in the brain because it can release the psychological and the physiological impact to the body. So when we say it out loud, it changes our brain and the soul, and it helps release the shame. I put a quote on my post about Maya Angelou says, "There's no greater agony to the soul rather than bearing an untold story."
Mm-hmm.
And we hold that
So true.
inside. It creates agony. It keeps that shame stuck down inside of us. That is always a part of us. It holds us back from our best potentials.
Mm-hmm.
When we release it, it propels us to healing. And along with breaking the silence, then we start to get a true understanding of what our true statistics are, the statistics that we have now.
Yeah, I was hoping that you would bring out the statistics, because that was rather amazing and rather important for people to understand the weight of this topic is in our society and probably around the world.
It is. It's huge. I mean, just in the United States, there's 48 million survivors of sexual abuse. 85% don't report. What's our real number? When we break the silence, we start to get a more realistic view of what our real statistics are. And they are uncomfortable, and we don't want to talk about them. But that's exactly what perpetrators want. Abuse survives and thrives in silence. Silence protects the perpetrator, it does not protect the survivor. Breaking the silence empowers the survivor.
Wow, that's powerful. If we all have one takeaway, this is it. This is it. The importance of giving them a voice, giving
Yes.
them a platform, and briefly share, because a lot of us are well aware of the Me Too movement happened a couple years ago, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it at all. But as I was doing research for my book and looking back, it seemed that a positive end of it, and you can confirm it, is that the Me Too movement actually has served as a place of safety
Yes.
in the public realm for women and men. Men have
Absolutely.
been abused too,
Absolutely.
to come forward, and that can, after years of silence, and that can actually then bring healing because they finally feel safe. So
Yes.
did that affect you at all? Where were you at in your book writing during that movement?
I was about 2/3 of the way through my book when the Me Too movement started and occurred. And for me, it was another confirmation of the critical value of my book at that point, because my book is about healing and awareness. Me Too is not a movement out of anger. I think some people think that. The Me Too movement is a movement to raise awareness and give that voice. And like you said, be uncomfortable in doing it, because sometimes it's so hard to hold that hand up and say Me Too, because you're so afraid what people are going to think about you. What are they going to say about you? Was it your fault? Because so many of us think it was our fault. Even as a child, I did. I thought it was my fault. I thought this was happening to me because I was so bad. And that's what we think. So we're afraid to say it. Yet when you start seeing other people say it, there is extreme comfort in that.
Mhm.
And with that being said, what I want to share next is, so what if someone does say, what if someone in your family, whether it's a child or an adult, says, too, I was violated. Something happened to me. How do we respond? And I want to address that because it's so important. So what I would say is, number one, be that safe place. Be a place of comfort. Number two, respect the vulnerability of what they just shared. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to say it out loud. So respect that. Number three, believe. The Justice Department will share with us that 97 to 98% of reported cases prove to be true. Yet, only 1/3 of parents believe. That's 33 and a third percent versus 97 to 98% are true. We have a massive disconnect. For the survivor to heal, we need to believe, we need to support. And when you support and you respect the vulnerability and you're that safe place, it gives them strength. And then that strength turns into resilience. And resilience is such a critical piece to the healing process. So
Yeah.
we need to be
Mhm.
safe, respect the vulnerability, believe.
I believe. Yeah, you mentioned resilience. Isn't that one of your attributes? Because you discuss your healing process in the form of attributes. And can you briefly go through them? And I think everyone will be able to gain from that, as well as what you just gave us were practical steps as to what we can do. I know that counselors, pastors, social workers, healthcare workers, if they get wind of any sort of abuse, they are supposed to report it.
Absolutely.
So, but as individuals, so there's a fine line between there, but what you're saying is don't react in response and shock and say, oh no, that couldn't be. Just be there. Be that
Yeah.
safe
Investigate.
person because, yeah,
Investigate, but be that safe place during the investigation.
right. Yeah. So key.
So,
So your attributes.
attributes. I would love to share my attributes. First, I want to say that the 6 compelling attributes that I'm going to share with you, these are valuable for any hurt, any trauma, or any brokenness. Mine personally was sexual abuse, yet so many of us have suffered hurts or traumas. And these are the ones I used on my healing pilgrimage to allow me to go from broken to beautifully whole. Number one, perspective. The way we see the world is the way we experience the world. How do we want to see the world? What I can tell you is a glass half empty view of the world holds us back from healing.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, resilience. Just by surviving our hurts, our traumas, our brokenness, we build resilience. But resilience is our ability to rise above situations when life gets tough. And life's going to happen. We're going to suffer pain. We're going to suffer setbacks. We're going to suffer failure. But if we can build our resilience, it gives us the ability to persevere within the failures, the setbacks, and the pains. Next, gratitude. It is not happiness that makes us grateful. It's gratefulness that makes us happy. Gratitude, when I was a child, I used just a tiny bit of it because I would find, even as a young child, if I could be grateful for a moment, even as simple as frosting Christmas cookies with my mom or playing a board game with my brother, it would give me a break from the pain. It didn't eliminate my pain, but it gave me a break. And then later in adulthood, when I really dove into my healing pilgrimage, I started a gratitude journal. And what I would learn is every night when I wrote down those 3 things that I was grateful for, it made me feel better. Because the reality is every day is not good, but there is something good in every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then the research that I did when I was writing my book, I would learn that gratitude as a habit, keyword habit, actually reworks the neurotransmitters in our brain for good, which then reduce our chances for depression, anxiety, and PTSD.
Interesting. It's very interesting, the interaction between the brain, our thoughts, and our emotions.
It's huge.
Very.
The brain and the body do connect. Self-compassion. Self-compassion is the ability to extend kindness to oneself. This was not easy for me. When you carry shame and humiliation and low self-worth and low self-esteem, it's not. We have negative conversations in our heads. Sometimes it's women, it's even harder. I'm fat, I'm ugly, I don't like my hair, I don't like my eyes, I don't like my nose, I can't do that, I'm not smart enough, I'm not enough. Self-compassion changes that conversation. Changing that conversation with a choice and a mindset and awareness propel our healing. Self-compassion also reworks the neurotransmitters in the brain for good. Next, my 5th is faith. Faith comes with love, compassion, and strength. My faith journey was a long one. It was a true pilgrimage. It was not easy for me. I laid in bed at night as a child and prayed for this horrific travesty against me to end. And for 6 years, my prayers went unanswered. So I asked, how could a God exist and not answer my prayers? How could a God exist and let this happen to other children all over the world? Or if he does exist, does he think I'm bad too and deserve it? Because that is what I thought about myself. So one can see when you ask these questions, it is not a quick trip to faith. For me, it took studying people with strong faith. I studied people with no faith. I read books, I read scripture, and I was very blessed to go on an Emmaus walk. And all of that.
And briefly, for the sake of those listening, what is an Emmaus walk, real briefly? I know what it is, but I'd like to hear you share more about that Emmaus walk.
I would love to. Honestly, I'll give a more description, but in short, it's a life-altering weekend. It is a weekend that's usually held at a church, and they have it for men and women separately. Each have different weekends, but it's a weekend for me. It was all women, and it's the ability to go and listen to talks and lectures, but to grow further with your walk with God. And the gift in that weekend is there were people there who had tremendously strong faith that were way down the road with their walk with Jesus. And yet there were some just sticking their big toe on the road to see if they could truly walk with Jesus. And it's a gift. It's a gift. What I will tell you is you definitely walk out closer to God, and you walk out fully feeling and knowing love.
Which was huge. So this is why it was a real, I don't want to say pinnacle in your healing, But
It
a
was
real
pinnacle.
it was. So it was pinnacle. Okay.
Yes, it
In
was
your
very
healing.
pinnacle. Yeah, it was, because when you walk away feeling that love and that strength, you then understand the power within faith. And the next gift with that is I could learn love, compassion, and strength, but then I would learn and think about grace. That grace allowed me to then consider forgiveness, which to me felt impossible, which takes me to my last attribute, which was also my hardest, and that was forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So, forgiveness is the act of forgiving. The definition is easy, the act is not.
Mm-hmm.
I had to ask myself, what did my stepfather do to deserve my forgiveness? He never said he was sorry. How do you forgive someone who cracked and broke you?
Mm-hmm.
How do you forgive someone who stripped your childhood innocence? Yet what I would learn is forgiveness was not about him. It was about me. And there's a saying I love: holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison, but expecting the other person to die.
Mm-hmm.
We think it hurts them. It doesn't. It hurts us. It holds us back from letting go. It holds us back from healing. It holds us back from joy, fulfillment, and our purpose. And the gift of my forgiveness, what I can fully then embrace it and allow it, it was the last piece pulling me back together, allowing me to become Kintsugi.
And oh yes, the Kintsugi. Um, Explain that, because people may be looking at your banner of your book cover, and they see this pot, or it looks like a cup from where the string cuts it off,
Yeah.
with gold. It's a bowl with gold,
I
like
would
gold
love,
webbing. So,
yes, exactly.
so
So I would love,
explain.
sorry, I would love to share. So kintsugi is a Japanese art form where they take broken pottery and they put it back together piece by piece with lacquered silver, gold, or platinum, because it comes with the belief that when something's been broken, it can be repaired and become stronger and more beautiful. The cracks are meant to be highlighted, not hidden.
Hmm.
A means to become whole again and embrace our imperfections. So for
But
me, it was the perfect metaphor because I did pull myself back together piece by piece, which is what each attribute did for me that allowed me to fully become whole again. And I think sometimes when we do suffer the hurts and traumas, we want to hide our scars. Kintsugi is a way to embrace them and learn and grow.
and allow the beauty to come out.
Yes, yes,
The
we
beauty.
can be more beautifully whole.
Yes, yes. Oh, how awesome. Cathy, you're an amazing woman and amazing story, and we are all privileged to get to know you and hear you.
Thank you.
And I know I'm going to speak on behalf of all of us. We pray the best for you, that your message will get out there, and that your goal of really helping to end the childhood abuse and neglect would come to fruition. And
It is my dream.
I just really want to thank you so much for this afternoon with you. And
Thank you.
we look forward to hearing from you again and more. And it sounds like soon that Ohio will lift the meeting, the safe distancing, and we'll have to take a look and see. But otherwise, our next chapter Zoom will, our next chapter gathering via Zoom will be the first Monday in May. And then we'll go from the first Monday from there on. It was more convenient for a lot of people in our chapter when we first got started. And prayerfully, maybe we can meet in a local restaurant. And if not, we'll do it Zoom until we can. So, but Cathy, your story is wonderful and causes a lot of us to think and understand better what women, men, children have gone through in their lives. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
For being an overcomer and sharing it with us.
Glad to, happy to. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're very welcome. And we'll see you. Okay. We'll see you later.
Awesome. They can, if anybody's looking for me,
oh,
they
yes. How can they get a hold of you? Thank you.
It's okay. It's okay.
I wanted to pub you. Yes, definitely. So those are wondering, how can I follow Cathy?
You can follow me on Facebook at Cathy Studer, or my author page, which is Broken to Beautifully Whole.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also follow me on Instagram or my website. You can ask any questions. Honestly, I am more than happy to answer any questions. And that is cathystuder.com.
Wonderful. Now, are you planning on creating courses or coaching from this that, you know, there may be people in our chapter or people that they know who have experienced what you have, who may be in connection with the child who has or is. So if they've been deeply touched, if they become a member of your Facebook page, is that a good way to get started?
Absolutely.
And will
so
you be planning to enroll coaching at all in the future?
I am. So
Okay.
if you go to my website at cathystuder.com, it is coming soon. So if you go to my coaching page, you will see that it is coming soon. I'm going to have a 6-week online course that gives everyone accountability for the 6 compelling attributes that I talk about. Because it's one thing to read in a book, and a lot of us do this, are like, oh my gosh, that was so good. You know, we even highlight. And then we put the book away and we get away from it and we forget about it. Well, my 6-week online course is going to be an actionable, accountable course to dive deeper into the 6 compelling attributes that I share. And it's called Becoming Kansui. So I will be launching that very soon, and I will have a free webinar coming soon.
Sounds absolutely wonderful, and sounds like it'll cross. If you haven't had a background in being abused, which I hope many of you haven't, but it sounds like it's going to be good for people who have and have not. So sounds like a great course. So
Absolutely.
we wish you the best.
Thank
And we'll
you.
see you soon.
Thanks so much, Marian. You take care. I appreciate the time.
Oh, you're welcome. Final goodbye.
Bye.